because I recall a verse it really is frightening. The mind is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be.
Yeah. Carnal mind.
Yes, Romans
the carnal mind is not subject
to the law of God.
So in other words, neither indeed can be. Well, so even if we try on our own, of course, there is, because of that, the usurper that penetrating that veil where man now is held hostage to the power of this world. I mean, left alone, humans will destroy themselves, wouldn't they?
Yes, Carlos, I mentioned earlier that we have been ever since that decision in Eden, a planet in rebellion. Not to imply that everybody on the planet is in rebellion. The power of choice is there. It can be exercised to choose who we will serve. Joshua says we can choose to serve God, follow his laws, do his bidding, have a relationship with him, but we can also choose to listen to these other voices that may pull us away in the direction of the arch deceiver.
Yes.
From Eden and prior right on down.
I may be stepping out of bounds here, but there are ministries who teach this type thing as well. TV ministries, you see where they teach the talking to the dead, and being able to reach your loved ones, and so people are being misled through certain ministries.
How do we handle that? Because when you're talking about, here you have a sincere Christian, that love the Lord, and he's been told, or she's been told, don't worry, Grandpa's up there. He's just looking at you and praying for you.
Proud of you.
Proud of you, or whatever. Oh, don't do that. Grandpa doesn't like that. But he died. But he's looking at. I mean, that kind of a thought, it is prevalent in our society today, where we tend to derive a certain amount of comfort on the thought that perhaps there is a wonderful place where Grandpa went, or Grandma went, or Daddy, or Mama, or our little children, and so on and so forth. And without getting into the subject so deep on the state of the dead, which is important to also cover, but the reality of it is that people are being deceived even in this most tender of feelings, and they are sincere. So what do we tell them, Steve?
Well, we have to go back again to the Garden of Eden, when Eve was confronted with the voice that came through the serpent. Right. The serpent told her she won't die if she eats the fruit. And prior to that, God had told her that if she ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, she would die. So there was God's voice.
There you are.
Directly, and then there was Satan's voice through the serpent. And the only way that Eve would have been able to discern the devil's voice, which she ultimately didn't do, would have been to rely upon what God said and stick with the voice of God. And so, and we're all exposed to these two voices. And many times we don't know.
Even today.
That's right. And many times we don't know which voice is which. And so based upon the study of the Bible, we are then able to hear what God says, and then we're able to discern the voice of the devil, the voice of the enemy. And if we don't have that basis, then we can't do it. Now, the title of this program is Occultism, The Battle for Your Mind. And I've written numerous books in the area of occultism. I've written about witchcraft, about Harry Potter, about vampirism, about communication with the dead, and these really occult activities, which are saturating television and movies and the internet and books and novels, etc. And what we do is we look at these topics and we look at them in the light of the Bible, see what the Bible says, so that we can discern, whether the ideas that are being communicated to us about all these different things are really from God or the devil.
And we do have on screen right now the 3 books that Steve has written. Steve, tell me about these 3 booklets. Are very small booklets, but my goodness, they are powerful. And you have them right there on the screen, so you can refer to them. And the websites below them, what are those?
Yes, there's a little book. The first book is called Perils of Talking to the Dead, and it deals with what the Bible says about this practice and whether it's something we should be involved in or shouldn't. And this book very clearly points out the dangers of being involved with this kind of communication. And we have the website avoidthedead.com. And then we have another book on the right side, which is Perils of Harry Potter and Witchcraft, which deals with white magic, black magic, occultism through media, TV, through Harry Potter. And it also looks at what the Bible teaches about the subject. And the website for that is avoidharrypotter.com. And then we have another little book in the middle, which deals with the whole vampire craze, the Twilight phenomena, which is gigantic right now. And the book is called it's called The Darkness of Twilight, and the website is avoidtwilight.com. And all of these, they're little books. They're only less than $1. They're designed for mass sharing, and they are focused on these different areas that people are so involved in and intrigued by. And what we do is we look at what the Bible teaches and show that really there are occult influences in all of these arenas which really are very dangerous, and people don't understand what's happening, but really it's the devil speaking through the medium of these different programs, just like he talked to Eve in the Garden of Eden, trying to lead us away from God.
Is this done through subliminal communication, Steve? Is that how they interject?
I would say probably both. I mean, yes. Satan is a brilliant being, and he'll use every method of communication. Yeah, I mean, he'll do it openly, he'll do it subtly, he'll use every different form of mind control and deception that he's got in his arsenal. And like I said, in order to understand what's going on and the influences of these practices in our society that are popular and are dangerous, we have to have a biblical basis of what God says, or we're not going to be able to understand.
So children cannot
what's going on.
Sort that out, can they?
No, children are not. Their
guidance.
Minds aren't developed enough. Now, if they come from good homes where their parents are training them in the way that they should go, as the Bible says, then they're more able to discern some things. But the serious problem is that without realizing it, parents often want a babysitter, they want some downtime, and so they take their children and they put them in front of television programs. Many of these are just programs for kids, but so often woven into them are subtle seeds of occultism. And I was reading just recently that Toys R Us is actually promoting a Ouija board for young people. They've made it pink so it looks real nice, and they're advertising it as something that's fun for kids. And the reality is this is a very dangerous occult tool that can open a person's heart and mind to be directly invaded by evil spirits.
And Carlos, this isn't something that just recently is coming down the pike. Our family had an experience that I'll never forget. My mother was one who studied the Bible and became a member of the church that she died in and that I live in. And she had a mother who was kind of crippled and paralyzed for most of her childhood. But when that mother finally died, my mother was attending the funeral down in Virginia, living in Youngstown, Ohio at the time we were. And when she got back from the funeral to her home, went to bed, next morning about 6 o'clock, she woke up and there was this being in her bedroom.
Oh my goodness.
That was her mother, to all appearances.
That's creepy.
Now remember, my mother had studied this subject in the Bible. She thoroughly understood the teaching, and yet her first impulse was to say, "Oh, Mama, Mama." And then she caught herself. She said, "No, you're not my mother. You are Satan or one of his agents impersonating my mother." And it disappeared just like that. It never came back. But here she was, a Bible student, understood the subject, but the emotions that build up over the loss of a loved one came to that first surge. "Oh, Mama, Mama." Without that background that Steve's been telling us about, and Bob here, what might her decision have been? That could have been an opportunity to open up dialogue and go right down the road until her mind would be controlled by that.